Hey everyone, I'm here with my friends and colleagues Shannon and Siobhan.
Hi.
And what you're about to watch is a conversation that I had with them for a podcast recorded by the New South Wales Department of Education. If you're someone who is interested in teaching or a current teacher, then hope you enjoyed this little snippet, but go over to the second channel and watch the whole thing because it was a lot of fun, our conversation, and hopefully you'll get lots out of it too. Thanks guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Welcome to Teachcast, a podcast by teachers for teachers.
I'm Shannon and
I'm Siobhan.
hi everyone. Welcome back to this episode of Teachcast. We are very excited because we are joined by a special guest today. But of course, as usual, you are joined by your host, myself, Shannon, and Siobhan is here with us today.
Hello. And we're really excited to introduce to you today our special guest. You may know him from his famous YouTube channel, Mr. WooTube, but we know him as Eddie Woo, a mathematics expert and educational leader within the New South Wales Department of Education. Eddie has over 1 million YouTube subscribers on his channel and splits his time between providing curriculum support for the mathematics team within the Department of Education. Welcome to Teachcast, Eddie.
Thanks Siobhan, Shannon, thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. I feel like we should cue the applause in there.
Totally unnecessary. Kind of feels funny because, you know, no one gets into teaching to be well known or for acclaim, that kind of thing. We do it because we love the kids. And it's sort of a delightful and charming thing that all of this kind of stuff that you've just referred to has happened along the side. I'm just very grateful.
That's right. Well, of course, a little disclaimer, both of our mums know who you are, so I think you should be pretty chuffed with that.
I apparently, for reasons I cannot fully comprehend, I'm really good with the over 60 female demographic. So thumbs up to them, I guess.
We love that. Do you have any examples of perhaps there are aspiring maths teachers or current, beginning mathematics teachers who are getting that common, I'm bored, this is boring, what's the point? Do you have any sort of advice to them on how to really help the student connect the learning of the concept of mathematics to their broader world and understanding? It's a complex question that you can't answer in such a short amount of time. But
it is, Siobhan. But I love the question actually so much, which is why I'm kind of pausing on it, because what I think is so delightful about your question is that it sort of balls together. When I think about the Australian professional standards for teachers, I'm persuaded there's a reason why number one is number one, number two is number two, and they're there at the start, right? If you want to know content and how to teach it, which is number two, you have to know students and how they learn. And I'd add to that, know your students. So to all of those people who you identified before, Siobhan, listening out there, I would say like your kids, that's your core business, right? Teaching is about students before it's about syllabuses. And so, this goes back to our comment about playground duty, and not just playground duty. It's about coaching sport or being, seeing students perform in a musical ensemble or a solo performance, of a school evening and seeing that different side of a kid. All of that is what feeds into when that question comes to me in the classroom, in the lesson. I'm not just answering it from the point of view of, okay, here's what the syllabus dot point says, or here's the rest of my knowledge. It's how I'm related to this child. What's that dynamic between the two of us? What kind of direction will I take the conversation in? Will I talk to them about, because I know that Sophie wants to be a pastry chef and is going to get on an apprenticeship as quick as she can. Maybe somewhere through year 11, she's going to do TAFE courses. And I'm going to say, okay, this connects to your understanding of proportion when you're looking at a recipe and you're trying to think about, wow, I have 450 people I'm going to have to cater for. How am I going to work out how this scales up, right? And obviously that answer that I give to Sophie is very different to an answer that I give to a different student based on what their interests are and what they care about.
For me, your passion for education really shines through. And with someone who has so many years under your belt teaching in, New South Wales public schools, what would you sort of say to beginning teachers now to keep that passion alive and to keep that learning and the encouragement going?
I think the biggest answer to that question, Shannon, is what we've already been talking about, which is that students are at the heart. You never grow beyond that. Going back to your question before, Siobhan, about what's surprising, I think the the novelty of teaching every new cohort of students. You know, like I teach a timeless subject. Pythagoras' theorem is true today as it was centuries ago. And I've had friends who are not educators and they've said to me, Eddie, doesn't it drive you mad? You know, you are teaching to the beat of the same bell and it's more or less the same syllabus over and over again. Don't you get bored? And I've always said, but I think I've struggled to convey in the fullest sense, it's like, no, when you have that new group of personalities walk into that room at the start of every year.
Completely different.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's got to be the first and biggest answer, even though we've already talked about it.
Yeah.
I will say, in addition to that, you know, over the course of 15 years, I have loved that it's not just that I love helping other people learn, but that I enjoy learning myself. I remember I want to say it was after my first month of full-time work. And a friend of mine at church, he said, hey man, I know you've just started up. How are you faring? And I said to him in a kind of sleep-deprived daze, I said, I am exhausted, but I love this work and I'm really enjoying it. And I'm finding, you know, meaning and purpose in what I do, which is what everyone hopes for in their work, right? And he looked at me, he paused, straight in the eye, he said, I give you about 3 weeks. And I was like, hey, thanks for that, you know, upbeat.
Encouragement,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And, you know, I know what he was getting at because the realities of full-time work, especially when you can call this, you know, some dazzling family planning if you like, or a brave navigation of, a navigation of that fine line between bravery and stupidity. But my oldest child was born 6 months into my first year of work.
Wow, yeah.
So I had a little newborn at home and I was tired, but I really did love it. And 15 years later, I actually think I've been discovering even more reasons to see the value and the dignity and importance of the work that I do. And it means that I'm solving different problems to what I started out with. I remember as a classroom teacher, there are lots of things about what my work was at that time, which I just kind of took as a given. I'm like, this is what work in a school looks like. And then I realized, like the late Steve Jobs said, that when you have that realization that so much of what is around you, the way that we do things, was made up by a person just like you, that frees you to say, maybe we could do it differently. Maybe there's a better way. And I think because us as teachers, growth is a part and change is a part of our profession because that's the premise that we encounter students in. Like, I'm here to see not just you as you are, but who you can become and you growing into that. And I think we should apply that to our own work as well. And so as I've sort of molded from classroom teacher to a head teacher to someone who is now working across the system, who's working in universities and so on, I love that I've had the opportunity to expand my own knowledge and challenge myself with problems that are bigger than what I ever thought I could ever take on.
Have you had a powerful mentor who's sort of guided and directed you through your career that you'd like to reference, mentor, mentees?
The hardest part of this question for me is that I have too many to choose from, and I actually think maybe that's part of the lesson that I want to convey, that look, life's too short to only learn from your own mistakes. You have to have the humility to learn from the wide range of experiences of all the people around you. And I still remember my tertiary supervisor, the person from uni who was looking after me when I was on placement as a student teacher. She said, you will learn something from every teacher that you interact with. You might learn it by counterexample, but if you got your eyes open and you're respectful and you pay attention, you will see things in every classroom that you're like, that's amazing. I want to learn how to inhabit that myself, right? It is really difficult to pick one out. But you know what? I think the place that I'm going to go is I generally try not to embarrass people who are still in the profession because they're going to say, like, they're going to encounter people and it's like, hey, you're still doing this right now. But I'm going to pick out someone who I'm cheating because he's just retired. So my principal for the last 10 years, he was an enormously valuable mentor to me because I just learned so much of who I am as a leader came from him, both consciously saying, I want to be someone like him who's respected and who pays respect also to the people who work under him, that I never felt talked down to. I always felt like I had time from him, which is incredible. Like principals, I now reflect back on, because I get to interact with lots of principals. I'm like, how do any of you get any of your own work done? Because you are constantly interrupted by people who I'm like,
supporting everyone
yeah,
else.
exactly. And I'm thinking about him because it's not even consciously, but subconsciously. You know, the way that I ask questions of why I'm doing what I'm doing, how I know it's having impact, they come from him. So I'm so appreciative to the conscious and subconscious influences he's had on me as a leader. And I know that like he's an English teacher, and so I know that as a maths teacher, we often thought of each other as like he was and is really great at picking apart data, and I characterize us as, he was an English teacher who loved a good number, and I'm a maths teacher who loves a good word. So, yeah.
Oh, we love to hear that. Well, what a lengthy career he would have had. So really nice to hear about that.